All right, welcome back to the channel. Anthony Joshua loses to Alexander Usyk, but still wants to fight Deontay Wilder and Tyson Fury and said he would do it without the belts. Let's talk about that in this video. All right, welcome back to the channel. So Anthony Joshua is somebody, I gotta tell you, man, I'm not a biggest fan of his fans, but I like the guy a lot as a person. Seems like a really good guy, a genuine guy. And anytime I see, a boxer fall off, it's just kind of natural for me, to, I don't want to say feel sorry for him, but, that might be the best thing for me to say. He had a very tough fight against Alexander Usyk. Well, it was tough for Anthony Joshua. I don't really know if it was really that tough for Alexander Usyk, but he lost the fight. And so obviously the next questions are, what is he going to do after that? He has a rematch clause for Alexander Usyk, and he says that he wants the rematch clause, but he also said with or without belts that he wants to fight Deontay Wilder and Tyson Fury. Now, at first when I heard him say that, I thought to myself, yeah, kind of the usual thought that, what good is that fight now? But, after you think about it for a second, it really doesn't matter if Anthony Joshua, well, hopefully, or there may be a chance for Anthony Joshua that doesn't matter if he beats Alexander Usyk or not, if his fans support him and if he has, the kind of following that people said he had, where, there's some fighters that have enough fanfare behind them and support where people will still watch their fights. Now, Anthony Joshua, I'm just going, in my opinion, is, he's a bit of a hype job. And I've been saying that for pretty much his whole career, just looking off of how he fights and how much, pomp and circumstance there is around Anthony Joshua. It was a matter of time, no matter how much they put behind you, and eventually you're going to have to show that in the ring, and you're going to run into somebody that is going to test you. Now, looking at Anthony Joshua's career, I really do think that the first person that was in real position, to test him was Alexander Usyk, and most of the other people that he fought before, I thought, I just thought that they were good fighters, but they were not really elite level fighters. Vladimir Klitschko was a guy that was an elite level fighter, but he's not. But he wasn't at the time Anthony Joshua fought him. He fights Alexander Usyk, who I do think is an elite level fighter, skilled fighter, and when he lost the fight. But that doesn't mean that Anthony Joshua can't have a career and move on and fight other big fights, right? And that's, I think, one of what we talk about, some of the problems in boxing and people's obsession with people being undefeated. There, if you watch boxing just to see who the biggest, if all you're gonna do is watch, boxing matches that has the best fighter in it, and if you don't pay any other attention to boxing, then you may say, yeah, well, now that Anthony Joshua's lost to Alexander Usyk, what good is he? What difference does it make, right? If Deontay Wilder, if he lost to Tyson Fury, right, this is no longer a good fight anymore. We don't care about the fight anymore. But if you look at, through the history of boxing, man, there's been a lot of really good matchups and fighters that take place between people that are not undefeated. Styles make fights, and if you have two fan bases or a fan base and they see a good fight that could get made, there are a lot of fights that can be made that are interesting fights. If that wasn't the case, then nobody would care about Dillian Whyte, because quite honestly, man, Dillian Whyte still has people watching his fights, and he's been knocked out by Anthony Joshua. I think he got knocked out. I know he got knocked down and wobbled. I think he got knocked out by Anthony Joshua early in his career. He got knocked out by Alexander Usyk. Got knocked out by Kubrat, what was his name? Alexander Povetkin, and people came back and watched the fight. Muhammad Ali has lost fights, came back, people watched the fights, and I don't see, that there would be any reason that Anthony Joshua and Deontay Wilder isn't a fight that can still be made, or Anthony Joshua versus Tyson Fury. Number one, because, how many really elite heavyweights are there? And even though Anthony Joshua is not the best heavyweight, and I've never thought he was the best heavyweight, it doesn't mean that Anthony Joshua is not somebody that's worth watching, or somebody that can't give you entertaining fights, or somebody that cannot beat the top guys on any given night, right? You have the number one heavyweight, but then you have the 5 or 6 guys in there who can really make fights that are very entertaining, right? So I like the fact that he said he'd still be willing to fight Deontay Wilder, and that he'd be willing to fight Anthony Joshua without the belts, because more than likely, at least this is my impression, that's what he's going to have to do in order to get in, if he's going to move on with his career, because I don't really see Anthony Joshua getting those belts, especially getting those belts off of Alexander Usyk. I think somebody else is going to have to come around and beat Alexander Usyk to get the belts off Alexander Usyk, or Alexander Usyk is going to have to get stripped or something like that and have a belt become available. I just think that, Alexander Usyk is just an all-around better fighter than Anthony Joshua. And when Anthony Joshua takes this rematch with him, I think that what you're going to see is you're probably going to see a more dominant performance out of Alexander Usyk than you saw the first time. Now, I know that, Anthony Joshua has lost to fighters before, like he lost to Andy Ruiz and he came back, in the rematch. So he was able to, to come back from a knockout of Andy Ruiz, to come back and win a decision over Andy Ruiz. But I think this is a different thing, man. In the fight with Andy Ruiz, I just think that he got, he didn't expect for Andy Ruiz to be that fast. And honestly, man, Anthony Joshua just doesn't have the best chin in the world. So he really couldn't come back from that. And so he was able to make an adjustment with Andy Ruiz and just kind of fight and box from the outside. With Alexander Usyk, he's going to have to put himself at a lot more risk with Alexander Usyk and really take the fight to Alexander Usyk, because he's not going to be able to box him on the outside. I don't think Anthony Joshua is going to become a better fighter between here and the next fight. Number one, because Alexander Usyk is really that skilled a fighter. But number two, Anthony Joshua's confidence has to be hit now. He's a very human fighter. He's lost two out of the last four fights. And I'm not saying I don't see him coming back against another fighter and building his career up against another fighter, but I think that that's what's going to have to happen for Anthony Joshua to get back on top. Similar to the way that Lennox Lewis did it after Lennox Lewis got knocked out by I think he was knocked out by Oliver McCall. He didn't go right back in the fight with with McCall. He fought several other fights to kind of get himself together. That's what I would hope that Anthony Joshua would do. And if that's a fight with Deontay, the loser of Deontay Wilder and Tyson Fury, man, that could still be a very, very big fight and something that could set up the rematch down the line. Even though I got to say, I'm personally kind of happy that Alexander Usyk won, but that's not because I don't think Anthony Joshua is a good fighter. I don't want the best for Anthony Joshua. It's just his fan base has just really been over the top for the last couple years, especially the way that they treated Deontay Wilder. So, a cold hard reality check for those guys. I didn't mind seeing it. But as far as Anthony Joshua still wanting to fight Deontay Wilder and still wanting to fight Tyson Fury, man, by all means. And I don't think that that's a fight that should be discouraged. Anthony Joshua's career is not over because he lost to Alexander Usyk. Same way I say that, Deontay Wilder's career isn't over if he loses to Tyson Fury. Or Tyson Fury's career is over if he loses to Deontay Wilder, or Usyk's career would have been over if he lost to Anthony Joshua. Those are the things that people are saying when they're really just hating on a fighter and trying to find a way not to have that fighter, get in the ring with people. The truth of the matter is that Alexander Usyk has introduced himself as one of the top heavyweights, and a guy that is going to have to go in there and show and prove against fighters in the future. And he's going to have tough fights, man. He didn't have a fight with Derek Chisora that was easy money, and the fact of the matter is that Anthony Joshua may not be all he's cracked up, it just isn't all he was cracked up to be. That doesn't mean he's not a good fighter, and doesn't mean that, he won't, be able to come back. So I'm happy that Deontay Wilder's, Anthony Joshua said that about Deontay Wilder. I certainly hope that they make that fight. I hope all of these guys get in and mix it up and fight one another, because that's how you really get golden eras in boxing, man. It's not always about the guy that is the best. It can also be about the other guys that are around there making really, really good matchups that boxing fans like to see. But anyway, that's my take on the matter. You let me know what you think in the comment section. And with that, I'm out. Peace.